And good morning and welcome to another Next Gen Planners Commute, our final Wednesday commute of the season. How depressing. I'm Rohan Sivajoti, the co-founder here at Next Gen, and today I am joined by Jess Gear. Hello Jess, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. What is new in Jess Gear's world?
Oh, not a lot. I had fish and chips last night, which is always good.
Oh, nice. That's always good. That is always good. I had some last week and just went all out, like battered sausage,
Oh yeah.
fish, the lot, just gone for it. It was so good. Oh,
Oh.
awesome. Jess, we are all the gear and no idea. So as I have no idea, tell us what's going on today's show.
So today we have a guest interview with Kate Holmes. Chris Budd is back with another financial wellbeing thought for the day, and we have Steve Martin's fitness focus. But first we have the news with New Model Advisor, which today is brought to us by Laura Perkis. Hello, Laura.
Hi everyone. So I'm sure you're all aware the news makes for pretty grim reading at the moment. So I've tried to find a couple of positive stories that have come out the last few weeks. So, for example, UK consumers paid off a record £7.4 billion of debt in April this year. Around £5 billion of that was credit card debt, which is more than double the credit card debt that was paid off in March and is over £4 billion more than normal. So the average amount that's paid off each month is around 300 million. Before March, consumer borrowing had just started to surpass levels recorded before the 2008 financial crisis. Obviously, to combat the fall in consumer borrowing, private sector businesses have had to take on a record number of debt. So economists are predicting a push to get people spending again. A small piece of positive financial planning news. Four industry professionals, including two long-standing former Mattioli Woods directors, have managed to launch a new financial planning firm in Leicestershire in the middle of lockdown. The firm is called Watton Kirby Lee, and it received a direct authorisation from the FCA in April, and it officially announced its launch on Monday. A shameless plug on the behalf of my editors. So we've just put out a whole edition of the magazine dedicated to talking to planners around the world, and those are all up online now. So I spoke to a lovely financial planner in Singapore who talked about having international clients and having to fly around Asia as part of her job, which is pretty nice. We also spoke to people in Australia, Brazil, the US, the Netherlands and South Africa. I think that's it, but it gives a nice picture of financial planning across the world. And I think all of those are online now, and we'll be putting them out over the next few days. That's the news.
Brilliant, that sounds really interesting. So what are you looking at for today, Laura?
This isn't classified news. I can talk about this. There is a firm that is launching a class action lawsuit against Hargreaves Lansdown over the promotion of the Woodford funds. I should have probably mentioned that already. As of about 3 weeks ago, they had over 500 claimants, but apparently that's over doubled now. So this could be a big law case to watch out for. So I'm going to be putting something out on that later today, I think.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. So now we have Chris Budd's Financial Wellbeing Thought for the Day, brought to you by the Initiative for Financial Wellbeing. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Jess. How are you?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
Lovely. I'm all right. A couple of little family plugs, if I may. I'm wearing one of my son's T-shirts, first of all. So if anybody wants one of these, let me know. I'll send you the link. And if anybody knows a financial planning firm somewhere on the south coast that's looking for a trainee paraplanner, my daughter is currently doing her exams and is looking for a job in September. So keep your ears to the ground for us, if you would. My financial wellbeing tip today, last one I've got up to about 32 in the end. And today I want to talk about purpose. I do a lot of work with companies, with business owners, making their businesses long-term, sustainable, and we call it the flag in the ground, what the purpose of the business is for. And I've got a little story which I think is amazing to illustrate how important purpose is for businesses, for your clients, and for you. So my wife is a cancer nurse, works in the oncology centre in Bristol, and it's true to say that the sickie rate, obviously sickie being taking a cheeky day off when you're not really ill, the sickie rate in the NHS is much higher than it is in private industry. There's lots of reasons for that. My wife has been telling me for years about how low the morale is on her ward. You've got politicians trying to sell off bits of the or privatise, bits of the NHS. Not controversial, it's just true. That's what they're trying to do. You've got the fact that nurses are underpaid compared to other professions or private nurses. You've got the fact that foreign nurses are being told to go home through Brexit. All in all, the morale has been terrible. Now, there are 12 people needed on her ward every day, and every single day there is between 1 and 2 people off sick, taking a sickie. I mean, obviously some of them are going to be genuinely poorly, but it's pretty much accepted that a lot of those are sickies. Now, here's the interesting statistic. Since the beginning of lockdown, there hasn't been one single person take a day off sick on her ward. Isn't that amazing? And I think the reason for that is because suddenly the government are talking about save the NHS, our hero workers, nurses being called key workers. We're going out on a whatever day is Thursday, isn't it? And clapping for the NHS. Imagine if you're sitting in your flat thinking you're taking a sickie the next day and there's people outside clapping you for being a nurse. So suddenly there is purpose. You're being appreciated. The reason why you go to work is being appreciated by the greater public. The reason that you go to work is to have purpose and to help people, and finally that's being recognised. So I just think that is the most fantastic illustration of the importance of purpose. We keep calling these intrinsic motivations in financial planning. That's really what it is. It's purpose, helping your clients to find it, and hopefully helping you to find it in your jobs as well.
Super, Chris. Wow, what an awesome message that is. And that's so good to hear. So good to hear. And hats off to your wife and everybody else in the NHS from everybody. I'm sure we all echo that at these really, really difficult times. Chris, I love that. Thank you. And 32 of those you've done throughout the commute. So
I've learned a few things as well.
Little round of applause for Chris there. A nice little ripple for him. Be super. Thank you, Chris. Really
Thank
good.
you.
Really good. Thank you. So onwards to today's interview. Now, I'm really, really excited about this one. Right. First of all, as well, we're going to give another round of applause here because it's what is it, 12:37 a.m. in the US. Yes. And Kate, I've just seen Kate put on a cardigan as well, so it's probably freezing.
Well,
so,
Kate, it's very, very hot here, so I turn on the air conditioner, which is sitting right above me. So no, it's actually very warm, but blowing on me is cold.
Oh well, I don't feel quite so bad now. That's okay. Cool. Well, look. Yes, today we have Kate Holmes, who is a global advocate for financial planning and founder and CEO of Innovating Advice and many other things which we're going to come on to. So Kate, just to start things off, tell us a little bit about your career, how you came into the profession and what you focus on today.
Sure. And I'll actually start, if I can, by giving a shout out to Laura and New Model Advisor. I've already flipped through that magazine. Super fun to see. I recognized a whole lot of names and faces. So really well done on that. That was great. So my sort of career in a nutshell, sort of hard to do in a couple minutes, but I'd say I fell into it like a lot of people did. I actually graduated uni in Australia with a degree in photography. And when the government kicked me out, I went back to Seattle, where I'm from, and my mom owned an investment advisory firm. And I've always been fascinated with how people spend money and interact with money. And I've always sort of been one to go against life's traditional path, hence getting a photography degree in Australia. And so I learned all I could, learned a ton, but it just never really made sense to me. And I quickly fell in love with going into companies. And I would sit down with employees of every rank, and I realized they were not asking me what the stock market was doing or what interest rates were doing. They were asking me about like life's kind of bigger questions and how they can get help. And so I learned about financial planning and I became a CFP professional. And in going through that, I don't know if it was the creative side of my brain, but it kept kicking in and it didn't make any sense to me. And all I kept thinking about was that I would not want to go through this as a client. And so I kept looking around and I just sort of had an epiphany. I was like, I need to create the business that I would want to work with as a client. And so I launched one of the very first completely virtual, fee-only, no assets under management, no product sales, monthly retainer model practices in the US in early 2013. And in doing that and realizing sort of the response it got, which my average client was 57 in my first year, and I was targeting people in their 20s and 30s, I started working with other advisors and then other advisors around the world on how they can sort of shift their thinking outside the box. And Chris, do a lot of what you just touched on, right? Have those bigger conversations and about life, leveraging technology. And so that's a lot of what I focus on now.
Wow, awesome. So Bellmore Financial, isn't it? It was so that was the firm that you launched in 2013. So what did you learn from launching that business? And you know that firms are experiencing obviously challenges during this lockdown. What are the sort of things that they can benefit from?
I'd say probably three main things. The first, most people have already realized, clients are willing to meet virtually. I understand not every one of them, but they are, and it's often more convenient for clients. And that's one thing to keep in mind as advisors do go back into offices. And I know, clients are asking to come back into offices, but we're all in this weird time. Life hopefully is never actually like this again, but keep an open mind to the fact that clients might actually want to continue virtually going forward. So make sure to communicate. The second is there's a ton of low and no cost technology out there. And I've talked to a lot of advisors that have struggled with how to shift to a totally virtual environment. There's so much cool stuff. I'd say keep it simple, keep it low cost. And that way, if it's something you don't like, it's not a huge hassle to change. And I'd also say, if your pipeline has dried up or if you've lost clients because they've lost their job and they can't pay, consider a different business model. The thing I loved about doing the monthly retainer is that was for those sort of high income, not rich yet, the Henrys. So there are, millions of people out there that might not have the assets to manage, or they're tied up in a pension, but still want that advice and they're willing to pay for it. Potentially in some cases even more so now because life is so uncertain and they need that, guidance in those conversations to figure out what their next step is.
Awesome. And I just want to go off script a little bit here. Sorry, I'm already off script. I said I wouldn't do this, but I already am. In terms of what you said there around the challenges to people and life's big questions and that kind of thing, what are the sort of most common challenges that you see from clients that come through the door?
It's figuring out, the thing that I love about what's happening right now, yes, there's tons of devastation, and I'm in America right now, mass devastation, but going back to what happened in the global financial crisis, do you know how many businesses were started in the global financial crisis? The amount of clients that are out there that have probably been thinking about, changing careers or starting a business or doing something totally different, have those conversations. Because this is actually a great opportunity and a catalyst to take those things that have been in the back of your brain. Maybe even some of you, maybe you're thinking, hey, actually, I have wanted to start a business. In these recessions and in this crazy time is actually a fantastic time to do it.
Awesome. Completely agree. Awesome. Oh, cool. So as well as all of this, Kate, you're a member of the CFP board and you also sit on the Women's Initiative Council. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in both those places?
Yeah, so the Women's Initiative Council is part of CFP board, and that came about because we have been sitting at 23% women CFP professionals in the US, even as the total number of CFP professionals over the last decade has gone from 55,000 up to we're at 90,000 now. And yet it stayed at 23%. So something there isn't working. And so a lot of that work is to figure out what is that? How can we attract more women to the profession? And we've also merged a bit of our work with the diversity advisory group. So realizing it's not only about gender diversity, it's about, racial and ethnic diversity and diversity of all kinds. So it's really trying to have the profession reflect what the country and the world looks like.
Awesome. So you run the Innovating Advice podcast, obviously, which I know a fair few of us have listened to. I can see in the comments there a few people talking about it as well. And within that, you have a strict gender diversity policy. So you obviously clearly believe, just like you said there, that to put diversity and inclusion front and center of things is hugely important. So what was it that prompted you to make the decision to put your head above the parapet?
I've worked with advisors and traveled, working in 35 plus countries, and I have met so many amazing women, people of color all over the world. And then I go to a lot of conferences and you look at in magazines and you look everywhere and it's still so old and white. And I just was noticing that there was this disconnect between what I was experiencing and what we need to see and what is actually being seen. And I know one of the challenges is a lot of women are not comfortable, kind of self-promoting, and women tend to just kind of, I'm going to get stuff done and do really great work, but they're not self-promoters. And so it has actually been a ton of work for me to get 50% of my guests be women, but that to me makes it all the more important to do, because I need to use this platform, to reflect what this profession actually needs to look like. And I think it's so important. I mean, I've gotten discouraged. I've been in the profession for 15 years. The amount of times I've gotten discouraged looking around and, like, nobody else looks like me or acts like me, or you think you're the only one going through things. I think it's just so important to know that you're not alone and that there are all these people out there. And so I want to build a platform and a place where we can amplify those voices and encourage women to say all the great things they're doing.
Absolutely. Awesome. And you are doing exactly that. So that is practicing what you preach, Kate. That's awesome. So you're obviously a global advocate for financial planning. And what are the benefits of financial planners reaching out to other planners around the world?
I think the biggest thing is it just gets you thinking outside the box. I mean, even if you're just learning what regulatory regimes are in other countries and you're like, oh, wow, like that's how you handle that. I wouldn't have thought of that. Or, learning what's happening from a regulatory perspective in another country, it might be good to realize, well, what would happen to your business model if that came to your country? Looking at technology developments around the world. I mean, that's all over the place. So seeing, okay, who has cool tech, or where can we bring cool tech, collaborating on cross-border clients, especially I know tons of British expats all over the world. So making sure that you're collaborating there and, just people that could be doing different things that you never even thought of.
Awesome. Cool. And I know you've been working alongside Adam, our very own Adam Owen, recently to put together the 24-hour global commute. So thank you for all your help with that. Tell us why you wanted to get involved and about some of the guests that are lined up for that.
Oh, look, I'm clearly all about connecting people from all over the world, learning from each other. So as soon as Adam mentioned it, I think I jumped on it before he even finished the sentence. I was like, what a cool thing to do, to bring these voices together and emphasize that we are a global community. Even if people never leave their own borders, we are absolutely a global community. In terms of the guests that I'm working on, I'd say I have about half of them confirmed. The other half should be confirmed the next 24 hours. Naturally, gender and racial diversity were super important. So I've got Paul Manti in Ghana, who's a huge, huge advocate for financial literacy and financial education. Carrie List is the CEO of FP Canada. He had just a massively successful episode on my podcast recently. Lauren Williams in the US is actually, I love her story. She was the first American woman to medal in both the Summer and Winter Olympics. And now she's a CFP professional and has built her business. We've got Lizetta Rainey Braxton and Desarte Williams, both awesome people doing great things with their own businesses. Then we circle around to Australia. We've got Adele Martin of Firefly Wealth, awesome business doing all online financial coaching. Clayton Daniel, the managing director of XY Advisor. That was important to bring that one in. Kevin Neo, who's just an awesome forward-thinking financial planner in Malaysia that I talk to frequently. And Kim Pottinger in South Africa. Her approach to coaching and retirement planning is just super forward-looking and impactful. So just tons of great people, and finalizing guests in Brazil and New Zealand, a few more in the US. So we'll be announcing those soon.
Wow. So not much then. I'm glad he hasn't asked too much of you, Kate. It sounds like he's just asked the odd thing here and there. So that's good. Keeping you busy. Tell us about some of the sort of favorite stories that you've got from working with financial planners across the world, perhaps.
Ooh, my favorite stories are the people that realize what a great profession this is when they really are helping people and realize that it's a business that you can build around your life. And I love it when I see, I I didn't even try to do it, but clients started saying to me that I was setting the example of what was possible in their own life. By going virtually, I was traveling the world. Clients always played like, where in the world is Kate? And like I had one client that was like, oh, I want to start a consulting or a counseling business, but I have young children. And she was like, oh, but if you did something different in financial planning, maybe I can create a different business model in counseling. And so seeing that with a lot of other financial planners, that whatever it is, if it's more time with your kids, if it's more time with hobbies, like being that example for your clients of what the power of great financial planning and great financial coaching can actually do in building your awesome ideal life.
Amazing. So cool. And finally, how do you find time to do all of these things?
Well, it's 1 a.m. So I guess I just, all hours. No. I have spent a lot of time on learning to take care of myself. So like for me, I realized I work best in chunks. And so I love working for like 4 hours in the morning, and then I don't work for 4 or 5 hours. And that's when I go exercise or run errands or cook my meals for the next 5 days. And then I always get a second wind and work in the evening. So, and that gets into the sort of, it's a great way of building a business that works around your life. So self-care is super important to me. I have been burned out a few too many times, so I know the signs to not go down there. But you have to make sure you take care of yourself in order to be effective for anyone else.
Awesome. Absolutely class. Well, can we have just a little round of applause from everybody, please? Just because staying up till like 10 to 1 in the morning to talk to us, help us out with that conference line of everything is absolutely incredible. That was such a useful interview, Kate. So thank you ever so much. Thank you.
Oh, Rohan, thank you.
Thank you. I will now hand over to Jess because I've got to shoot as well. Now, just before I hand over to Jess, actually, because we're going to go over to Steve, I believe. Steve, I've been doing the intermittent fasting thing and lost a bit of timber actually. So thank you very much for that. Jess,
you're looking good, buddy. You're looking good.
You've already introduced him, Rowan.
I've just done that, haven't I? Yeah. Go on, Jess, do it way better than I did.
Okay. So we've got Steve Martin's Fitness Focus now. Steve has been helping us all to manage those lockdown biscuit cravings over the last 8 weeks. So Steve, what have you got for us today in the final Fitness Focus? Well,
thanks, Jess. Thanks, Rowan, and thanks, Kate. You've all done an amazing job of teeing up the Fitness Focus. Kate, you're talking about self-care being mega important, which has been the kind of underlying theme of everything that we've talked about through all of this. Rohan, you've been following the intermittent fasting. Adam's been following the intermittent fast. In fact, Adam's been doing everything. Adam's my favourite student in the whole world. He's like literally consumed everything that we've talked about. And it seems to have been working for them. I've had other people messaging me randomly saying, I've been paying attention to the things that you've been saying and it's been working, which is, he's moving to Spain as well. I haven't given that advice to anybody. This is my area. You can all bugger off. Stay over where you are. But yeah, it's been brilliant. It's been such fun for me to do. And as you'll all know with these things, if you're going to do something and nothing happens as a result of it, I run out of enthusiasm very quickly. But because you guys have all embraced it, not necessarily all of it, we're all human beings, we've all got our lives to live. You can't be spending every minute thinking about this, but the fact that you guys have all got involved has been awesome for me, and it's great to see that some of this stuff's been working for you. So firstly, it's a thanks to you guys for that, and secondly, I'm just going to bang my drum that I usually bang every week at you and nag at you to eat less. I'm going to hang on to share my screen before I can start to. There's space, Clem. It's a big country. There's room for you. There's definitely room for you to move to Spain. So really for today, it's just a summary of everything that we've touched on before. As I say, I love the fact that you guys have embraced some of the things that we've talked about, but this is about now, how do we kind of evolve change into normality? How can we just maintain better habits around sleep, better habits around exercise, and better habits around food for the medium to longer term? So we're going to try and keep it simple. We're going to keep on the same things. That every day you've got a choice of eating some of these guys or eating some of these guys, eat more of these guys, less of these guys. It will be good for your health, it will be good for your weight, it will be good for your mental well-being. The nutritional content of these guys is almost negligible. Don't misunderstand me, there is nothing I enjoy more than thick toasted bread, absolutely drowned in butter. And there's no harm in doing that occasionally, but just make sure that we see this stuff as more of a treat rather than a staple, and try and build our life around these guys, and we will be fitter, healthier, happier, and more robust actually to manage the stresses that life throws at us. Again, you guys will all remember this. The most important thing in your food plan is it's something you're going to stick to. If you're not going to stick to it, it's a waste of time. If we can get beyond sticking to it, the next thing we want to have a look at is total calories. As I said before, I'm not going to bore you with all the different viewpoints on how we control the amount that we consume. But the most simplistic way is just to have a rough idea of calories. And in general, if we can eat a bit more protein, most of us don't really eat enough protein. The magic thing about protein is it helps all our rebuilding and repairing of our muscles, but actually it does quite a good job of sating us in a way that carbs, for example, don't tend to. Carbs tend to make you more hungry. Protein tends to make you a bit fuller, which from my point of view is useful because it allows me to wire my mouth up and stop me continuing to shovel stuff into it. You'll remember we looked at what did a sample day look like. Kate, you mentioned, batch cooking and all that kind of stuff. I'm not very good at doing that, but I can be pretty dull at eating broadly the same thing each day for a number of days. Whichever version of those two things works for you. The worst thing you can try and do is eat based on what you think you might like to eat at every minute of every day, because I guarantee you're not going to make the best food choices if you've got a fridge full of chocolate and tasty stuff and some other stuff somewhere else. It's a little bit harder work. So have a bit of a plan. Don't stick to it religiously, but have a bit of a plan that you're trying to keep to. Do some batch cooking, which makes it easier. Path of least resistance is a great helper with all of this stuff. We talked about intermittent fasting. I've been back doing it again this week. It's actually been through necessity rather than anything else. I've been too busy and underprepared. So my time that I would normally have eaten breakfast early has been superseded by work, and therefore I eat breakfast later. But hey ho, that's put me back in intermittent fasting. I actually find it quite easy. And I do make better food choices afterwards than I would have done if I just start shoveling food in my face the minute I get out of my bed. We talked about this, and it didn't labour the point, but I think it is something useful. We eat for lots of different reasons. We have a necessity element, we have a lifestyle element, we have a fun element, we have I feel good, I'm going to eat, I feel bad, I'm going to eat. There's lots of reasons why we do that. It's useful for us to, mindfulness in general is a good thing for us to think about. If we can explore a little bit more our mentality towards why we're doing some of these things, hopefully it will help us make better decisions across the board, and our eating will be better as a result. I couldn't find a sensible picture, but you are all IT literate enough to be able to go to Whoop. Whoop is really cool. If you think, and if you're a total analysis geek like I am, so if you think Fitbits are useful, Whoop blows it completely out the water. This stuff analyzes your sleep. It tells me when to go to bed every night. It tells me how long I've slept in relation to the time I've been in bed. It tells me how effective my sleep's been, and therefore how well my body's recovered. So if I've got a decision, I'm going to go and run a long run tomorrow, or I'm going to do it the day after, I can do it based on the data that Whoop tells me about how rested my body is. And again, when Kate's talking about burnout, as I've mentioned to you guys before, I don't tend to get work burnout because in general I don't work all that hard. The moment's a bit of an exception, but I absolutely get training workout because I train far too hard and I just keep training like a headless chicken. What this helps do is give you real, genuine feedback as to how rested your body is and how ready it is to take on more strain. And it does cross over to work as well. So I would give it a try. It's a thing that goes on your arm. If you can see my arm, it looks like a Fitbit, but it's not got a face on it. But the level of data that it's taking out of your body is absolutely enormous, and it helps you learn patterns. So for example, if you sit in bed for an hour and watch Billions on your iPad, as I did last night, there is an impact in the quality of the sleep, not the time, but the quality and the recovery that your body has. So you will learn your own habits by completing its associated journal stuff as to what is the best things to do for you to maximize your recovery. One other thing I've learned is I need to sleep a lot less than I thought I did. I used to think I needed to sleep about 8 or 9 hours a night. This is consistently telling me that if I get 7.5 good hours of sleep, especially because I'm not training too hard at the moment, it's plenty. That makes me more effective during my day, and it focuses the mind on trying to make the most out of the time where we're doing it. So I recommend it to you massively to give it a try. It's a subscriber model thing, so you don't have to tip up a load of money up front. I'm not going to do the maths for you of upfront cost and no ongoing versus ongoing and no upfront. You know they're making more money out of you in the long run, but it means that there's no disincentive to give it a go. So that is my big tip for today. Just a quick reminder, slides have stopped moving again. Do you know, I think my iPad gets bored. Like after it, it's maybe my chat it gets bored of, but it certainly seems to get bored. Anyway, I had a picture of Peloton just to remind you that there are fantastic resources out there to take some of your own motivation needs away. If you go to something like Peloton, you can get a running session, you can get a weight session, you can get a stretching session, you can get a yoga session, you can get a bike session, and you will have somebody there telling you what to do so you can disassociate your brain and just get involved. If you pick 3/4 of an hour and you've started that class, the likelihood of you doing 3/4 of an hour is much greater than if you just decide to do it off your own back. So I would encourage you to use those things if there's any sense of weakness in your mentality towards staying the course to deliver what you'd set out to do. I'm going to give up with the slides anyway. So wake up and be awesome is the same thing. Whoop is the best way for us to do that. If you don't want to do that, just try to go to bed roughly at the same time and get up roughly at the same time. If you do that, it helps maintain your body's natural cycles. You'll be tired at the right time. You'll wake up refreshed. Talking to us at 1 o'clock in the morning, not massively helpful from that point of view. But you are also allowed in that case a siesta, or what people have been referring to as a nana nap, in order to catch up. That's a perfectly sensible and reasonable thing to do, and it's been practiced around the world for donkey's years. Okay, just one very quick thing, because obviously because it's the last session I have to run over, because that's what I've done every other one other than one. Sorry, Jess. All of this stuff is not about performance, it's about well-being and health. If you want to be an athlete, then there's different things that you should be focusing on. This is about trying to be healthy for life, maintaining your well-being, being able to enjoy your life, enjoy your work, and fit all your stuff together. A little bit of focus in all of these areas will have a positive impact on your life, and that is the whole idea. So very quickly, get up and go to bed at Broadway the same time, or get a Whoop and do what it tells you. Nutrition, we're aiming for progress, not perfection. Don't beat yourself up if you don't do it. If you can manage it 5 days a week, eating how you should do, and then 2 days of blowout, great. 6 is even better. 7 is probably going to get you to the point where you blow up completely and quit. So be fair on yourself, embrace the principles, but don't try and obsess about it. And then finally, from an exercise point of view, keep moving, keep mixing it up. Recognize that some strength training as well as some aerobic training is useful, and sometimes you need to make your body work hard. Just doing walking is great, but you will get a much better physiological response if you force your body to work a bit harder some of the time. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. So tomorrow we are hearing about some of the charity challenges we have coming up on the Global Commute with Andrew Cook, Gretchen Betts, Clem Chaplin, and myself. So have a great day, everyone, and stay safe. Bye.
Bye.